Men are easiest to rule when they believe they are free. Voltaire. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. Once upon a time, before the noise, the world was simple. Not perfect, but simple. A tree was just a tree. A day was just a day. A person woke up, breathed, moved, felt hunger, love, fear, and peace, without needing a name for each. There were no systems, no philosophies, no doctrines. Just rhythm, just life. But then came the whisper. A quiet, almost invisible moment in time when someone said, "This is not enough." Someone decided that simplicity was weakness. That clarity was dangerous. That truth, raw and open, must be wrapped, packaged, hidden. So they created the first mask, and behind that mask, they hid power. At first, it was small, just an idea, a thought, that there must be more, that things are more complicated than they seem, and that only the wise, the chosen, the initiated could understand. This was the beginning of complexity, the birth of fog. From that moment on, simplicity became suspicious, truth became encrypted. People began to doubt what they felt, what they knew deep inside. They stopped trusting their hunger, their intuition, their pain. Someone told them pain must mean something profound, something mystical, something only the learned can decode. Someone told them joy needs a system, so they built systems. Tall, heavy, layered, words stacked on words, rules stacked on rules. They said, to be free, you must obey. To be wise, you must study. To be pure, you must suffer. And if it feels simple, it must be wrong. And the people believed, because the more complex acts something sounded, the more holy it seemed, the more unreachable, the more sacred. Simplicity was abandoned, forgotten, branded as naive, weak, shallow. And over time, generation after generation, this lie grew teeth. Children were taught not to trust their hearts, to silence their questions, to accept the difficult path, the twisted logic, the unreachable ideal. They were told that only a few can understand. That truth lives at the top of a tower, guarded by codes and rituals. But deep inside, something always felt wrong, like walking through fog and pretending to see, like eating but never feeling full, like hearing a melody but never remembering the tune. That feeling, that quiet unrest, is not confusion. It's memory. The memory of a time when things were clear, before the lie, before the tower, before someone said, "You are not enough." They built temples, schools, kingdoms. They gave names to ideas that once had no name. They created a language not to connect, but to separate. The more they explained, the less people understood. The more they taught, the less people knew. And the most dangerous part, they made people believe that this is how it must be, that life is meant to be hard, that love must hurt, that joy is earned, that truth is reserved. But none of this is real. It never was. The world, at its core, remains simple. Beneath all the noise, all the words, all the layers, there is still silence. There is still breath. There is still the self that remembers. And that self is starting to wake up. There came a moment in history when simplicity was not just forgotten, it was deliberately erased. Those who sought control realized a fundamental truth. A person connected to the simple essence of life cannot be manipulated. If people remembered that happiness is natural, that health is instinctive, that love is effortless, they would stop needing priests, rulers, gurus, or experts. And so began the great distortion, not through violence or laws, but through complexity. Complexity became the mask behind which power could hide. People were taught that life was a puzzle too difficult to solve without help, that their feelings were unreliable, that their instincts were dangerous, that their worth must be proven through effort, knowledge, and obedience. Simplicity was labeled as ignorance, while confusion was dressed as wisdom. From childhood, people were told they needed to earn the right to feel whole, that success comes through long, painful steps, that health requires secrets only professionals know, that happiness is found only after years of sacrifice. All of this created a powerful illusion that life is hard and you're not enough until someone else says so. Society built towers of information, rituals, and systems, all with the same purpose: to convince people they're not ready yet, that they need one more course, one more book, one more breakthrough. Meanwhile, the truth sits silently under their skin, unnoticed. Every moment of clarity is drowned in a flood of advice. Every natural insight is buried under words. The more complex something sounded, the more valuable it appeared. And so, people began worshipping the difficult. They started to believe that the truth must hurt, that anything worth having must be paid for with suffering. But it's not true. It never was. It's a trap, an ancient strategy to keep people spinning inside a system built not to free them, but to contain them. Power structures, whether religious, political, or economic, discovered that the best control is the one people impose on themselves. When a person doubts their own inner voice, they become dependent. And when enough people believe that life is too complex to navigate alone, control becomes effortless. No chains are needed, just ideas. These ideas told people that only a few are allowed to understand. That truth lives in high places, written in hard language, guarded by chosen ones. That without permission, without qualification, without suffering, you can't possibly know. This illusion has grown roots. It's repeated in schools, media, even spiritual teachings. It's not shouted, it's whispered. And people carry it like a quiet burden. I am not enough. I need help. I am not ready. But under all the noise, something inside remains untouched. A soft presence that remembers. Something simple, something obvious. A truth that needs no explanation. And this truth doesn't shout. It waits. It waits for the moment when the chasing stops, when the person stops looking out there and finally looks in. Every time you're told you need to become someone, the real message is you are not yet someone. Every complex system you're told to follow carries the same poison: separation from your own power. And so people remain stuck, always reaching, always striving, always missing what's already here. There is no secret, no ultimate formula, no hidden key, just a lie, repeated for generations. That simplicity is not enough, that easy things are suspicious, that truth must be complicated, but that's the great reversal. The real truth is what's simple. And the moment a person remembers that, the illusion cracks. When you begin to feel that the answers you've searched for are already living inside you, not in theory, but as something you've always known, then the fog begins to lift. The noise begins to fade. The control begins to die. This is the fear of every system that depends on your confusion. That one day, you'll stop searching and start remembering. That you'll sit down, breathe, and feel. That you'll trust the simplicity of what you are. Because once you do, they lose their grip. You no longer need them. You become your own authority, and that's something they cannot allow. So the complexity will keep coming. Louder, brighter, more sophisticated. But it will always be a mask. And once you see the face behind it, clear, quiet, and simple, you never forget it again. Throughout history, every structure of control has relied on one silent agreement. People must believe they are not capable on their own. This belief is the seed from which all manipulation grows. From the old temples of power to modern media, the formula hasn't changed. Convince the people that the world is too complex for them to understand, and they will give up their freedom willingly. Long ago, those who first understood this principle realized something dangerous. When people feel whole, they don't obey. When they trust themselves, they don't follow. When they feel worthy without earning it, they can't be ruled. That's why rulers, priests, and teachers of the system never aimed to teach simplicity. They created layers, traditions, hierarchies, special languages, all to build the illusion of depth where there was only fog. The architects of control are not interested in truth. They are interested in structure, in predictability. They do not want people who act from their own knowing. They want people who need instructions, people who seek validation, people who feel like imposters in their own lives, because those people are easy to manage, easy to guide, easy to sell to. Look closely, and you'll see it everywhere. In education, children are taught not how to think, but what to think. They're told to memorize, to repeat, to pass tests written by someone they'll never meet. They're taught that knowledge is a staircase, and they are always at the bottom. In religion, people are told that salvation comes from outside, that worth must be proven, that truth is revealed only to the chosen few. In media, success is portrayed as a narrow path, available only to the perfect, the beautiful, the approved. And all of it is wrapped in complexity, jargon, titles, processes, qualifications. So the average person never questions it. They assume it must be right because they don't understand it. They assume their confusion is their own fault. This is the genius of the system, to make you believe that your lack of power is natural. But it's not. The idea that only a few can rise, that only the exceptional deserve freedom, is a lie designed to keep most people asleep. The architects of control build narratives, myths of exclusivity, of talent, of privilege. And these myths create division. The ones who know and the ones who never will. The worthy and the unworthy. The chosen and the forgotten. And inside, every person grows the quiet fear. Maybe I'm not one of them. This fear becomes self-fulfilling. It creates hesitation, silence, self-sabotage. People stop before they even try. They censor their dreams. They edit their desires. They live under the ceiling that someone else drew. And the tragedy is, they believe it's their own ceiling. But it's not. It never was. It was placed there by someone who needed them small. Think about how many times people are told what they can't do. Not directly, but through tone, through doubt, through structure. How many gifts die in silence? How many ideas are abandoned before they are born? Not because they were impossible, but because someone believed they were not allowed. The greatest trick of control is not force, it's consent. It's when the prisoner locks the door from the inside. When the mind adopts the voice of the master and repeats it, when you no longer need to be silenced, because you do it yourself. And still, under all this, the truth remains untouched. That truth is, everything real is simple, not easy, but simple. You do not need to earn your right to breathe, to create, to live with joy. You do not need to ask permission to be who you are. There is no test you must pass before you can feel whole. But this kind of knowing is dangerous to the system. That's why it's not taught. That's why it's not on screens. Because the moment a person realizes they are already enough, the game falls apart. The illusion fades. The control ends. The architects of control are terrified of that moment. The moment when even one person stops believing the lie. Because that one person becomes a mirror. And mirrors are contagious. One awakened person doesn't scream or fight. They simply live. Authentically, clearly. They make their own decisions. They listen to their own rhythm. They speak from their own center. And when others see this, something stirs inside them. A memory, a hunger, a spark. This is why control must be constant. Why distraction must be endless. Because if people had just 1 minute of silence, one breath of true presence, the fog would begin to clear. They would see the strings. They would feel the simplicity beneath the noise. And simplicity is the enemy of control. So complexity continues. Sophisticated systems, elite programs, specialized knowledge. The performance must never stop, because the moment it does, people will remember that the truth doesn't require credentials, that freedom is not earned, that joy is not bought. And once they remember, they cannot unsee it. Behind all the noise, behind every complex structure and theory, there is a simple truth waiting to be noticed. It's not hidden because it's far away. It's hidden because it's too close, because it's always been here. And people were trained to look everywhere, but where it actually is, inside. The truth is not encrypted in ancient scrolls or locked in elite programs. It doesn't require 10 steps, 5 keys, or a secret mentor. It's not reserved for the rich, the enlightened, or the chosen. It belongs to everyone, and it lives in the most obvious places. The breath, the body, the present moment, the simple act of being alive. But here's the problem. Most people don't trust the simple. They've been trained to believe that value must be earned through effort, that results come only after sacrifice, that anything worthwhile must be buried under layers of difficulty. So when something feels clear, easy, or natural, they doubt it. They reject it. They keep searching for something harder, something more complicated, something that sounds more official. That's the tragedy, because the truth has never been complicated. The laws of life, of well-being, of abundance, they are all rooted in simplicity. Health is not found in endless treatments and pills. It begins with rest, movement, breath, food from the earth, water, silence. Joy is not found in possessions or achievements. It comes from presence, connection, purpose, gratitude. Wealth is not about chasing or hoarding. It's about flow, creativity, service, belief in one's worth. These truths are universal. They do not belong to a brand or a nation or a belief system. They were not invented. They are as old as the wind, as clear as sunlight. And yet people miss them because they're searching in the wrong direction, upward, outward, forward, always trying to reach something when what they seek is already here. The system has done an excellent job of disconnecting people from the simple, from their own inner compass, from their natural rhythm. It fills their minds with data and distractions, convincing them that they need more knowledge, more tools, more status, that they are never enough, that their voice isn't valid unless it sounds like someone else's, that their path isn't real unless it's recognized by the system. This mindset creates endless hunger, a void that can't be filled. People go from book to book, teacher to teacher, job to job, hoping the next thing will finally make them feel complete. But it never does, because the foundation is cracked, because they're still looking through the lens of complexity. They're still trying to decode something that isn't coded at all, and the longer they look outside, the more they forget how to feel. They stop trusting their instincts. They second-guess their desires. They mute their inner voice. Life becomes a performance. Trying to meet expectations. Trying to fit in. Trying to be right. But truth doesn't care about being right. Truth just is. The simplicity of truth is not shallow. It is not basic. It is deep, powerful, unshakable. It requires no defense, no justification, no approval. A tree doesn't explain why it grows. It just grows. Water doesn't argue about its path. It just flows. And your soul doesn't need permission to shine. It just needs space. When a person begins to return to the simple, something changes. They stop performing. They start listening. They let go of the masks, the labels, the roles. They move from the inside out. And in that shift, they reclaim their power, not because someone gave it to them, but because it was always theirs. This is the revolution they fear, not a violent uprising, not a collapse of governments, but the quiet awakening of individuals. People who no longer ask for permission to be free. People who see through the noise. People who walk away from complexity and into clarity. These people don't need to argue. They don't need to convince. Their presence speaks louder than words, because they are rooted in something unshakable, in the truth of who they are, in the simplicity that cannot be faked. This kind of power doesn't come from a title. It doesn't come from followers or fame. It comes from alignment, from living in a way that feels honest, whole, natural, from knowing that nothing needs to be added, that you are never missing anything. It doesn't mean life becomes easy. Challenges still come, pain still visits, but the struggle changes. It's no longer a war against yourself. It becomes movement, growth, experience. Not something to be solved, but something to be lived. This is the simplicity they don't want you to see, because once you do, you stop buying into the illusion. You stop needing what they sell. You stop waiting for someone to choose you. You realize that everything real, love, health, peace, purpose, has always been free, always been yours, always been simple. And once you remember that, you can't go back. The fog lifts, the noise fades, and you begin to see the world for what it is. Not a mystery to solve, but a miracle to live. There always comes a moment, maybe quiet, maybe sudden, when a person sees through the game. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to feel the crack in the surface. Enough to feel that the rules are not real, that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall, that everything they've been chasing was based on someone else's dream. That moment is terrifying and liberating at the same time. Some ignore it. They feel the pull, then run back to the comfort of noise. They distract themselves with goals, with drama, with endless improvement. But others, even just a few, they stop. They listen, and they choose not to play. This is not rebellion. It's not defiance. It's something deeper. A return. A quiet decision to live without masks. to walk without permission, to breathe without apology. These people don't shout. They don't need to. Their life becomes the message, and their presence breaks the illusion. When someone stops chasing validation, they begin to feel their own gravity. They stop shrinking to fit someone else's mold. They stop climbing someone else's hierarchy. They realize they were never meant to compete, compare, or conform. They were meant to be fully, openly, simply. This kind of clarity can't be faked. It doesn't need a stage. It doesn't demand attention. It exists in the way a person moves through the world. Calm, clear, grounded. They act not to impress, but to express. They give not to earn love, but because they are love. They speak not to be right, but to be real. To the system, these people are dangerous, not because they want to destroy it, but because they no longer believe in it. They don't resist with anger. They dissolve it with truth. They are no longer hungry for what the world offers, because they've found something the world can't give: peace. Peace is not passive. It's not quiet resignation. It's not giving up. It's powerful. It's what happens when you stop negotiating with the noise, when you stop proving, when you stop begging to belong. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the absence of inner division. People who live this way don't wait. They don't delay joy until some condition is met. They live now. They create now. They rest now. They don't ask if they deserve it. They know they do, simply because they exist. This doesn't mean life becomes perfect. It doesn't mean pain disappears, but the relationship to life changes. Struggles become teachers. Failures become openings. Even suffering becomes part of the dance. Not something to avoid, but something to move through with awareness. They stop needing to be certain. They become okay with not knowing. Because they trust themselves, they know that clarity doesn't always come with answers. Sometimes it's just presence, and that's enough. Their definition of success changes. It's no longer about status, accumulation, or recognition. It's about feeling whole, being real, living true. They don't count victories. They live in alignment. And that's what gives their life meaning. The world still offers its distractions, still sells its fears, still performs its complexity. But these people don't buy in. They see it. They might still walk through the marketplace, still engage, still work, still speak, still play, but nothing owns them anymore. They don't belong to the system. And that makes them free. Freedom is not wild. It's not loud. It's not about breaking all the rules. It's about knowing which ones were never real to begin with. It's about choosing your path with clarity, saying no when you mean no, saying yes when your whole body agrees, moving because it feels right, not because you're afraid. This kind of freedom changes everything. It changes the way you love, the way you work, the way you wake up in the morning. You stop searching. You start living. You stop performing. You start being. Others may not understand. Some will judge. Some will be threatened. Because when one person breaks free, it challenges everyone else's cage. But that's not your burden. Your only task is to live what's true, fully, quietly, clearly. And this clarity is not a concept. It's a practice. It's built in the everyday, in how you eat, how you walk, how you breathe, how you respond. It's not a destination. It's a state of being. A deep knowing that you don't need to reach anything to be whole. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are simply remembering. And once you remember, you cannot be fooled again. You cannot be controlled. You cannot be seduced by complexity because you've seen what's real. And it was never far away. It was never hidden. It was always here, waiting, simple, still, yours. There is one tool that ends the game. One shift so powerful, so irreversible, that once it happens, nothing remains the same. It doesn't require money, status, or education. It doesn't need explanation, theory, or belief. And yet, almost no one uses it because it's too simple. Clarity, not intellectual clarity, not clarity made of words or definitions, but raw, inner clarity. The kind that comes not from thinking, but from seeing, from feeling, from stopping. Clarity doesn't mean you know everything. It means you finally stop lying to yourself. You stop pretending not to know what you know. You stop looking away from what has always been obvious. You stop believing that your confusion is real. Clarity is not something you learn. It's something you uncover, something that was always underneath the noise. And once it arrives, even in a single breath, the illusion begins to collapse. This world is built to keep you busy, to keep you distracted, divided, reaching. You are bombarded with choices, options, information, always told that you're missing something, and always promised that what you need is just a little further away. That's the design, to keep you looking out, never in, to keep you searching, never settling. But when you choose clarity, you stop moving, not in your body, but in your mind. You stop spinning. You stop negotiating with the fog. You stop trying to be someone you're not. And suddenly, the world loses its grip. The system is not afraid of anger. It's not afraid of rebellion. It's not afraid of opinions or debate. It feeds off those. What it fears is stillness, silence, simplicity. A person who no longer needs to prove anything. A person who no longer needs to be right. A person who just sees. Because once you see, you can't unsee. You see how you were trained to doubt yourself. You see how your voice was buried under layers of shame and performance. You see how your instincts were labeled as wrong, too much, too wild. You see how the most important parts of you were not broken, just inconvenient to someone else's control. Clarity doesn't scream. It doesn't try to convince. It doesn't rush. It just shines, quietly, steadily. Like the sun, it doesn't argue with darkness. It just replaces it. A clear person doesn't need to fix the world. They don't need to fight the system. Their existence is the correction. Their presence is the rebellion. Because they carry something the world cannot control: peace. And that peace is rooted in the understanding that life was never meant to be this complicated. That joy, love, health, meaning, they are not rewards. They are states, natural states, always available, always near, but unreachable as long as you believe they must be earned. So how do you find this clarity? Not by doing more, not by consuming more, but by doing less, by stopping, by becoming honest, brutally honest, with yourself, with your story, with what you've been pretending not to know. Ask yourself, what if nothing is missing? What if you're already allowed? What if every moment of confusion has been a signal, not a flaw, a sign that you are looking in the wrong direction? What if you don't need more information, but less noise? This is the turning point. The moment you no longer fear the simple. The moment you stop chasing mystery and start living truth. The moment you realize that the person you are trying to become was never more real than the one you already are. You begin to notice things. How your body has always known what it needs. How your emotions carry messages, not mistakes. How your intuition speaks clearly when you stop drowning it in doubt. You begin to recognize the voice of your own wisdom. Quiet, grounded, patient. You begin to say no, not from fear, but from clarity. You begin to say yes, not out of obligation, but from alignment. You begin to walk slower, listen more, feel deeper, not because you learned to, but because you remembered how to. And with every breath, you take your power back. You stop outsourcing your truth. You stop explaining your path. You stop needing someone else to give you permission to be whole. You are no longer a project. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer lost. The world may not understand. That's fine. It's not supposed to, because the world is still spinning in the fog, still selling complexity, still chasing shadows. But you are no longer in the game. This doesn't mean you leave society. It doesn't mean you abandon others. In fact, it's the opposite. You begin to show up fully for real conversations, for honest connection, for meaningful work. Not because you should, but because it feels like truth. You become a lighthouse, not flashy, not loud, just steady, just real, just there. And without effort, without trying, others begin to feel it. They begin to ask different questions. They begin to remember something in themselves, something simple, something clear. And that's how change spreads. Not through force, but through resonance, through presence, through one person at a time, becoming undistracted, unconfused, unafraid. You don't need to save anyone. Just don't betray yourself. Don't abandon what you know. Don't hide your clarity just to make others comfortable. Stand in it, even when it's quiet, even when it's lonely, even when no one claps. Because this is the return to truth. Everything else was noise. Everything else was theater. This is real. This is now. This is yours. You don't have to do anything to be worthy. You don't have to achieve anything to be powerful. You don't have to follow anyone to be free. Just stop. Breathe. Feel what's already here. Let it be enough. Clarity is not a step. It's the step that ends all steps. And once you live from it, nothing outside can own you again. The lie collapses. The game dissolves. The noise dies. And all that remains is the simplicity they tried to make you forget. You, alive, clear, whole, without needing anything more. You want to live fully, not someday, now. You want to be free, not just in theory, in every breath. So here it is, the most direct path, not a trick, not a system, just a way of being. Start by cutting the noise. Say no to what drains you. Say yes only to what brings light. Speak less. Listen more. Move your body. Feed it clean food. Give it sunlight and sleep. That's not basic. That's wisdom. Let your heart lead. Feel fully, without guilt, without editing. When you're sad, cry. When you're joyful, dance. Let the moment move through you like wind through open windows. Simplify your space. Fewer things, fewer rules. Keep only what serves your peace. Don't chase status. Don't chase validation. Build your life around what's true, not what's trendy. Choose presence. Slow down. Notice the details. The warmth of a hand. The sound of birds. The way silence holds you when you're honest. That's where happiness lives. Not in the future, but in the now. Forgive quickly. Release often. Carry nothing heavy. Don't hold grudges. They rot the inside. Let go. again and again. Freedom is lightness. Serve something bigger than your ego, not because you have to, but because it feels good. Kindness is strength. Generosity is power. And love, real love, is never a mistake. You don't need to fix everything, just align. And in that alignment, you become unstoppable in any place, in any condition. Even in chaos, you remain simple, effective, whole. That is real success. That is real wealth. And it's always been yours. We're sure you've discovered plenty of value, so subscribe now and stay connected.